Welcome back to Season 5 of the Changing Earth podcast with Sara F. Hathaway, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 192, Season 5, episode 29. I got a great show planned for you today. Spring fever is here and summer is coming. Very exciting stuff. So as your part of the world starts to warm up, I want you to start thinking about wild foraging. It's a great way to get out, get some exercise hiking, and also explore the world around you. Wild foraging is super cool activity to get into. You drive down the side of the street and the green doesn't just look like green. You start to identify everything that's out there, and it's a really fun activity to exercise your brain and also know what to eat if you had to. So last week in the Dark Days in Denver story, we visited with Erica, and she was desperately trying to escape her captors, while they forced her to watch this bombing activity in the foothills of Denver. So one of the things that we've learned about captivity is hope can be your biggest asset in that type of situation. And what they're trying to do is basically destroy her hope. So we'll have to see where that goes. But this week, we're going to catch back up with Vince as he wakes up from his experience of being shot twice in ballistics gear. Fictional writing's cool because you can make basically whatever you want happen, as long as you guys don't question me too hard about some stuff. But I really wanted to know the realities of, can you really get shot in ballistics gear at point blank range and be able to survive that? So here with us today is Brian Duff, the host of Mind for Survival, and he is going to talk about the realities of being shot in ballistics gear. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into chapter 29 of the Dark Days in Denver adventure.
Chapter 29. Vince opened his eyes. He couldn't remember if he'd just dreamed a horrible nightmare or if Erica was really gone. As he went to move, the pain reminded him that it was not a dream. "Hi, Dad," Star said, squatting down next to the cot. She grabbed his hand and held it. "Star?" he said, trying to get his bearings. "Where are we?" "We're in the command tent. Bennett brought you here," Star reminded him. "Oh, yeah," he said, rubbing his head. When his hand touched the huge knot, he pulled it back away. "Oh, shit," he suddenly burst out, sitting up rapidly. "We have to go and get her, and the homesteads." "One step at a time, Dad. Take it easy," Star told him. "We can't, Star. There's no time. She thinks I'm dead. They shot me in front of her. Remember Montana?" he told her. Star looked at him with wide eyes, realizing the implications of his statement. "Then we have to go get her now," Star declared. "What about the homesteads?" Vince asked. "No news yet," Bennett said, popping his head into the back after hearing Vince awake. "How long have I been out?" Vince wondered. "About 10 hours. The sun's just about up," Bennett told him. "What? You guys let me sleep all night? We got to get out of here," he said, standing up swiftly. But the movement was too much for him, and he sat back down for a moment on the cot. "Dad, you need to rest," Star told him. "The hell I do. I'm going after Daniel, and then I'm going to get Erica," Vince stated, standing back up and grabbing his pack. "Let's at least get a meal in you before we do that," Stan said, coming back in to check on him. "I'm fine, Stan," Vince declared. "You have one hell of a concussion and a broken rib above your heart," Stan told him. "No, I have a broken heart because they took my wife. The faster I can get to the homesteads to make sure my son is alive, the quicker I can go and get her back," Vince ranted angrily. "Here, eat this," Nicholton said, shoving a plate of food into his hands. "If you guys are going to walk, you'll need the nourishment." "Staff Sergeant Gleason," he called. "Yes, sir," she replied, approaching from the front of the tent. "You're going to make the trip with them, right?" he asked. "Yes, sir, my family is back there. I have to know that they're okay," she told him. "Go get your supplies from the mess. Make sure you have 2 days' supply for each person," Nicholton commanded. After they ate and Victoria resupplied them, they headed out into the ash that continued to gently sprinkle from the air. Vince huffed in the mask as they went along, but he was determined to succeed. He was not about to lose his family. On the second day of walking, the ash finally stopped falling completely. The gas mask was so stifling, Vince relished the fresh air. He stared up toward the sun that was still veiled in orange. It cast a gloomy light down on Bennett, who was tinkering with his radio. As Vince watched him, he realized the pounding in his ears was quieting, and his mind was clearer. Still not working? Vince asked Bennett. The radio hadn't worked since the bombings, but whenever there was a moment, Bennett tried anyway. No, it's still dead. How can that be, Vince? Bennett looked at him. Can't get mine to work either, Victoria commented. When they cut California off after the Great Quake, the same thing happened. They didn't want anyone to be able to communicate with the outside world, Vince told them. Hey guys, we got a large group of people approaching us, Star warned. They're evacuating, Vince commented, watching a man walk by. Excuse me, sir, do you know what happened at the homesteads? Chaos broke out after the bombings. 30 or so feds portrayed themselves as new recruits within the camp and they attacked, a man explained to Vince. Is everyone okay, Vince asked. From what I heard, they took some serious damage, but they have tough fighters within their ranks. Did you see a boy? About 11 years old, Vince wondered. I didn't see anyone. I was on the northern road. I'm just telling you what I heard, the man responded. What happened up north, Vince asked. A lot of death, the man said sadly. I'm going south. Maybe all the way to South America, if it's still there, the man said. Good luck, buddy, Vince told him, happy for the information. Good luck to you guys too, the man said as he left. What if they're evacuating too, Dad? Star asked Vince. I don't know, Star. I don't think they would. The plan was to meet back there, and that's what we should stick to. If Grandma Nancy is still alive, I think that's what she would do, Vince replied, worried sick. He couldn't sleep anymore, even though his body begged his mind for it. He didn't know if anyone he loved was still alive. His sons, his wife, his parents. He looked at Star, thanking God that she was at his side. But she was sickened with misery as well. She lost Kyle on top of everything else. You gonna be okay, Superstar? Vince asked. We survived, right? Star asked. Yup, Vince answered. Then God has a reason for that. And right now, I think it's finding Daniel and getting Mom back, Star said, tuning out the pain. It was too much. Couldn't agree more, Bennett interjected into their conversation. The four of them continued down the dusty highway. The road was flooded with refugees headed in the other direction, but they continued their course through the night.
Continuing the long trek back to the homesteads, the ashfall ceases, but Vince's body still aches. And here today to discuss the realities of being shot in ballistics gear is Brian Duff. Brian Duff is the host of Mind for Survival. He was featured on Season 4 as well as Season 5. Brian Duff is the go-to resource for concerned people who want to improve their safety, security, and preparedness. He is a proud former Army Ranger, paramedic, firefighter, high-threat security specialist, and international security director who has served and protected people around the globe for decades. When he's not working to help others, he can be found in the garage tinkering away, out on the hiking trail, or meeting up with friends and occasionally trying to find the end of the internet. Make the choice. Take a look at Brian's virtual home at mindforsurvival.com and set yourself up to overcome and survive any difficult situation. For more information on Brian, get a hold of him at mindforsurvival.com. That's mind, M-I-N-D, the number 4, survival.com. So let's go ahead and welcome Brian to the show.
Today, I am back with Brian Duff. Brian, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me back on. I love this. It's awesome. I love being on your show.
Yeah, you're definitely a guest that I look forward to picking your brain a little bit. So I appreciate that. So why don't you just catch people up? I'm sure everybody is well aware of who you are at this point if they've been listening to my show at all, but let's go ahead and let them know where they can find you and the nitty gritties.
Yeah, so I'm Brian Duff. I'm a former Army Ranger. I run a tactical medical training center out of Las Vegas. Spent a lot of years overseas, a lot of years as a paramedic in EMS. And if you want to find me, go to survival.com and check me out. And we just finished up the preparedness experience here in Vegas. Had a wonderful time. So hopefully you can make it to the next one at thepreparednessexperience.com.
Yeah, that sounded like it was going to be pretty darn cool if you want to ask me about it. So, alrighty. So today we're talking about being shot in ballistics gear, and all my listeners just listened to the chapter where Vince was shot twice. So I'm sure they're really interested to know his chances of survival in that situation, because it's looking pretty grim right now. So he has a helmet on, a ballistics helmet, and then he also has on, I'm going to go with the steel plate vest, even though as an author I left it kind of ambiguous there. But he's also carrying his grandfather's pocket watch in his pocket, because, you know, when it comes to fiction, you got to have the pocket watch thrown into the mix.
Right.
Yeah. So this is Mr. TJ Swenson, and he's going to be with us for a little bit, much to the reader's dismays probably, and that took him out. And so I really wanted to explore with you, you know, what the realities are of getting shot in gear and what your chances of survival are.
Sure. Well, I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into it. Obviously, you have the ballistics of the round, what size of the round was it, how fast is it traveling, how far are you away from the muzzle. There's that. Then you have the different factors of the body armor and the helmet. You know, is it old? You know, especially with body armor, when you have the Kevlar, have you worn it a ton? Have you sweat into it where you get those salts in there and it gets some of that, starts decomposing some of the Kevlar? I know, you know, you just mentioned a steel plate. Do they have a steel plate? Is it a ceramic plate that's been dropped over time and has cracks in it? Some of the steel plates, unless you have where they put a kind of a layer on the outside on the front of it. So when you get hit, it absorbs because when the bullet hits it and it fragments, does it absorb that stuff, or does it go blasting up into your neck and throat and causing you problems? You know, and then as far as the helmet, the same thing. I mean, have you dropped it? And you can, when I got hit in Iraq and I hit the front windshield of our vehicle and it cracked my helmet a little bit. So you can crack helmets, you know, again, same thing with them. Have they been out in the heat and nastiness for a long time? So where the Kevlar starts separating and delaminating, you can run into that. So it's really up to the person to take care of their gear and make sure that they keep on top of it. So, you know, like you said, a guy gets shot in the helmet. Yeah, I mean, I've seen people. I wasn't there, but one of the guys in my company was the Black Hawk Down company in Somalia, the Ranger company, and he got shot right just above the ear piece on the Kevlar, and it stopped the AK round. I've seen other people where they've zipped on through that and hit you, so you just never know. And kind of the same thing with the plate too, you know. And you mentioned the pocket watch. I mean, that throughout history, things like that happen. You never know. Right? I mean,
yeah, the president. Who was the president that had the Constitution in his pocket?
Oh, I don't remember.
Right? Oh, come on, I suck to bring it up and not know who it was.
Oh, well, I guess we both suck because
right?
none of us know it,
right? Dude, we like stop the bullet with like the Constitution. Oh, I can't remember. I want to say Hoover, but I think I'm wrong.
We'll have to Google that
anyway.
later.
Yeah. Readers, go check it out. Listeners, go check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, as far as the distance, so I've heard that like sometimes a 22 bullet can penetrate armor more so than a bigger bullet, because the bigger bullet expands into a bigger mass. So, is there any truth behind that?
Not that I've really seen, but then again, over in Iraq and stuff, people really weren't blasting with 22s.
Fair enough.
But you know, when people say that they don't fragment, I've seen X-rays from people that I've taken to the hospital as a paramedic that have been hit with a 22. And 22, when you look at an X-ray, I remember taking a woman who was shot in a drive-by, and she was shot in the face, and it literally, the X-ray looked like someone took salt and pepper, and just sprinkled it all over the X-ray because it fragmented into just hundreds of little pieces, and she was going to have a really bad time. And you think a 22, but I wasn't sure, you know, that she was going to survive. So I don't know that a 22 will necessarily. So many
little pieces you have to try and get out.
I don't know that it'll necessarily penetrate ballistics very well, but if it does, if it gets in there and hits you, you can have 22 is a very dangerous round because it likes to bounce and ricochet off of bones and organ, all kinds of stuff. So that's a pretty dangerous round. But I think where you really get into the differentiator is if it's a like a full metal jacket round, something that's, you know, like an AK-47 round, it's made to pierce stuff and penetrate versus, you know, if you're farther into, say, some long-term sort of scenario and people are reloading their rounds and you're going with like lead bullets and stuff like that, that's where you don't necessarily even, like, if you're running just a 9mm with a lead bullet, you may not even need to worry about the ballistic plate so much. Kevlar can stop that. But where you really get a problem on that kind of stuff is if you don't have a plate, or some people will go buy a plate carrier that's just carries your ballistic plate, so it has it in the center of the chest, kind of protecting your heart and your vitals. But people will buy that. You have to make sure you get a backer for that, like a Kevlar backer, because what happens is when that plate gets hit, it absorbs that energy, but it displaces it. It puts a huge dent in that plate, or it can.
Right.
And that dent at times is enough to kill you.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, is just like, because it was pretty point blank range that he's, you know, shooting him. And so would just the percussion of being hit in your helmet, you know, and that goes into your brain, and then you're hit in the heart and the, you know, percussion of that to your heart. I mean, that seemed to me like it would be pretty significant in and of itself.
Yeah, I think the wound probably in the body armor to the chest, especially if it doesn't hit the plate, that's probably the more dangerous, because if it hits the helmet and it doesn't penetrate the helmet, it's going to rattle his head, and you'll definitely feel it. You know, I mean, if you take a baseball bat and wear a helmet and you get hit in the head with that baseball bat, it may not crack your skull, but you're going to feel it. But I think the one where if it hits him in the soft armor, depending on the round, it can displace enough where, you know, it can cause you some pretty serious problems. There was an old video. I remember this as a kid. I'm kind of dating myself now, but when they first came out with like the Kevlar armor and police started really using that stuff back in like, I think it was like the late 70s, early 80s. I remember a video where a news reporter goes out and has somebody shoot him with a round. Like, oh, I mean, it's bulletproof. Sure. Yeah, but he was not feeling very good. Did he live? Oh yeah, but he wasn't feeling very good after it, because all that energy, you got to think of a bullet. It's a ball of energy, and when it hits you, it's transferring that energy into wherever it hits, whether it goes into your body or it hits that soft armor. It's absorbing it's a lot of energy, man, and so it's gonna hurt.
That's what I was saying. I'm like, that would still be like boom to your body, you know?
Oh yeah.
They make really cool. They're trying to do the fully immersive video game experience now, right? So they have like this hamster ball you can get into so that you can actually walk and move with the virtual reality goggles on.
Are you kidding me?
No, seriously. And then they're making like vests so that like they could put these vests on prisoners in jail, and then doctors could actually be able to palpitate them and stuff like that without having to be with them. That they could just have this vest on, right? And so they were using the vest as in the hamster ball as well, right? So it's a fully immersive experience. So as you're walking with your gun, you know, and then you're shooting, you get shot and you can feel it on the vest, like boom, 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 boom. And then they like did an explosion and hit this vest, you know, this guy's like on the ground, like, oh my gosh, that sucked. That's so bad. So I'm like, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I don't need that, man. I'm good.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm glutton for punishment. I'd be like, yeah.
Paintballs and sim rounds are good enough for me, man. I don't
right?
need more. But
yeah, we go airsoft. Cool. Airsoft's cheaper than paintball.
Yeah,
so
right.
It still dings you though, man.
Yeah.
So my friend was like, we had just got our fully automatic rifles. My friend's like, oh, we got to open them up, you know. So he comes running down the hill with his pistols, and we're four of us standing there with fully autos. And he's drunk, of course. And he comes running down at us. So we just start firing. I mean, it took a chunk out of his cheek. He still has a scar from that.
Oh, wow.
Like,
I didn't know airsoft shoots that hard.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
like 400 feet per second. So,
nice.
Yeah. So they'll ding you. So wear your mask, man. He wore a mask forever after that. He kind of wisened up a little. Yeah. I'm like, that's dumb. So let's get into the armor piercing rounds. If you're at a long distance away from an armor piercing round, does it still have the same effect through the armor?
It can, yeah. So armor piercing rounds are designed with like a steel core penetrator. If you look at old World War II rounds, you can see the 30-06 rounds will have like a black tip on it. They can go through a lot of stuff. I mean, I remember not shooting live telephone poles, but shooting like at poles with armor piercing, like an armor piercing 30-06, and it would tear right through a telephone pole.
Dang.
So yeah, it will, armor piercing will definitely tear up some body armor. Now, will it go through maybe a steel or ceramic plate? I'm not so sure about that, depending on the size of the round. But you can definitely, I think you could probably cause some armor, through soft armor at least. Because, I think a lot of soft armor, like your level 3As rated up to like a 357 or 44, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know all the gun listeners you have will definitely correct me on this. So go ahead and respond in the comments. Let us know what the level 3A stops.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to so you have full metal jacket rounds that like the military, a lot of people will use, but then you have your armor piercing that have the steel core penetrators and stuff like that. Yeah, that'll cause you a lot of damage real quick.
Yeah, and like you say, once we're further, because we're on my book series that we're at now, we're pretty far into it. I mean, they are still making more weaponry and stuff like that, but we're really far into it. How long would the Kevlar like last? So say, disaster struck, you own the Kevlar, and now it's 10 years later. Is that just basically null and void at that point?
No, I mean, I think it's how you take care of it. Do you subject it to extreme environmental conditions? Do you wear it every day and sweat into it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting cleaners on it, different things like that? That's what really causes a lot of your breakdowns and accelerates the cleaning. So yeah, I mean, if you're in a world where the world's gone to heck in a handbasket and you're wearing your body armor every day, yeah, it could very well be deteriorated. But then at the same time, it's one of those things.
Something.
I mean, having deteriorated body armor on versus no body armor on is, I mean, I'd wear the deteriorated body armor. I mean, I just think back to like the movies from like World War II movies. I mean, you can go online and then actually see a lot of footage of actual battles or look at like Saving Private Ryan. I mean, they didn't have anything. So you pretty much died. And that's one of the biggest advents you see. Like if people look into the statistics of warfare, when you go from say World War II and Korea into Vietnam and on to like the modern wars we have been having going on, they say, well, body armor, it's not doing this or that, but it does save a lot of lives because you're not getting those chest penetrations. And when you get a chest penetration and that rattles around in there, you're talking, I mean, your body's a big cavity, lungs, heart, spleen, organs, it bounces around and tears those stuff up. There's not a lot, especially in an SHTF scenario. There's not a lot you're going to be able to do for that. You're pretty much kind of done. That's why you see in the old cowboy movies, they go, Cowboy Bob's been gut shot. And it's like, ooh, that's a bad one, right?
Over. Yeah, even the intestines, you're leaving that and you're done.
Yeah, and because that's all kinds of bile and nastiness coming out into your body. And so that, you're going to probably die of an infection if
and
not.
It's going to probably be pretty slow. And
it ain't going to be fun. So that's right. If you have body armor, make sure you have a tourniquet because your most likely thing that you can treat after that would be an extremity wound. Get a tourniquet on that. But even then in an SHTF scenario, what are you going to do? You can't really repair arteries and stuff like that, but it's better than nothing. Maybe you have a shot at it. So, body armor, or tourniquets, I mean, if someone gets shot in the head or something like that, well, you kind of, that's just your day.
Yep. And then the helmet, I'm like, even if I'm a proponent of helmets because, obviously I wear hats a lot, but I'm a proponent of helmets because even if you don't have a bulletproof helmet on, like having a helmet on your head, if you fall down a hill and whack your head, I mean, you're better off to have something on your head to protect it than nothing.
Yeah. And I think people that come back to I don't like, we're all kind of the same mindset. I don't like the government mandating that I do anything, like wear a helmet. I'm not into that. But at the same time, I know I didn't have to wear a helmet when I was doing a lot of my stuff in Iraq and had one day when I got hit. Had I not been wearing my helmet, I would have died because I hit the front of the truck so hard it cracked my Kevlar. And I used to pass that on to guys and gals all the time, like, wear your helmet. It's a piece of protective gear. The only thing you're doing by not wearing your helmet is trying to look cool.
Yep.
That's
put
it.
yourself
like,
at risk.
Bad guy. I'm like, I'm tough. Yeah, I'll wear my bandana instead. And well, that cloth bandana is not stopping around. It's not stopping you if you smash your head.
Exactly.
And you talk to anybody in EMS, we don't have to go to war. You talk about people who fall down. That's one of the things, fights, right? I mean, you do taekwondo. When you knock somebody out, it's not necessarily you hitting them, especially in a street fight or something like that. It's not you hitting them that's causing the problem. It's when they hit the ground and their grape hits that concrete or hard surface. Yep. That's a lot of times where the problem comes in. So if you have a helmet, you're going a long way to protecting yourself. And as a paramedic, I've scooped up so many people who didn't wear helmets, and they definitely, if they lived, they definitely had a life-changing moment where they were never the same again.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned that, I did a lot of ski patrol training and,
Mhm.
you know, just skiing in general. And, one of the directors of, the hill that I ride, he's like, look, like 98% of fatalities on the mountain are because of head injuries.
Yeah.
You break a leg, you break an arm, you're still going off the hill. But if you break your melon open,
Yeah.
you're done, you know? So
Sonny
why
Bono.
not put a helmet? Sonny Bono. He found Sonny Bono, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with like
Yeah.
his eye out and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was
And
hit
he
the
just
tree.
was skiing and clipped the tree. I mean, he literally just boop and
Yeah.
took the side of his head off.
It
So
happens
yeah, and I've been
fast.
hitting my helmet and it scratched all across the whole cranium from a snowboard, you know, and that would have been my head. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
nope,
And
just put a helmet on.
you got to plan. And everybody goes, well, the odd, and everybody goes, well, what are the odds of something happen? You know what?
It does
Eventually something will happen. We've all been hurt. If
Yeah.
if the odds didn't matter, then we'd never be hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but we get hurt. Things happen, and you don't want to be that person, man. I mean, it's head injuries are not good.
No, no, I agree. So that's why I'm like, put the helmet on, and if you can afford a bulletproof one, then why, by all means, go ahead and grab a bulletproof one, especially if you think you're going to be in that kind of situation, you know?
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
down. So, but yeah, the blunt force injury, I was like, you know, I wonder even with the helmet if he would have, you know, been okay, because it seemed that it seems like it would be really traumatic to be shot in the head with a
Oh,
bullet.
there's no doubt about it. It would be traumatic, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I've known people that were shot in their helmet, and it was definitely a moment for them. I mean, afterwards you laugh like, oh wow, but
Whoa.
it's like that was
Yeah.
pretty serious, man. Like, it's
Yeah. Okay, so there's hope for Vince at the end of this all. There's
yes.
true hope for him that my story could be correct, that there could be hope for him. So all my listeners just got to hold on and see what next week brings.
Good luck, Vince.
So I have one more question before we wrap it up. If you were going to set yourself up right now with gear that you thought would last you long term into the future,
Mhm.
as far as self-protective equipment goes, what would you be investing in?
Well, it would also depend on what my plans are. So, am I going to be really active in it, or am I going to be? Is it going to be something like, hey, I'm like living at my house. I'm not going to be traveling around much. So, in other words, I can have heavier, more bulky stuff.
Mhm.
If I'm out running around a lot, I would probably go with just a plate carrier with some sort of. And if you're trying to be tactical, we're talking you're carrying weapons and stuff, probably a
Mhm.
plate carrier. Obviously, I try to keep it as low profile because the less you telegraph to people that what you have. But I'd have that plate carrier and make sure you have what they call a standalone plate. So, and the standalone plates are the ones that help protect against that deformity that happens when the plates get blasted. The companies like AR-500 also make basically a Kevlar sheet that is fit to that plate, and you slide it in behind the plate. So
Okay,
it's
like a
that one
double.
protection. Yeah. I mean, you're still leaving your shoulders, your different parts of your body open, but you're protecting your heart and your other vital organs. And, again, it's a trade-off of, it's kind of like what they always tell us. Well, do you want to be more secure? Give up your freedom, right? So you're trading off freedom of movement, ease of movement
Mhm.
for levels of protection. Uh, from there, I would look at going up to maybe a full soft armor vest with a plate in it. I mean, I actually have a AR-500 that I keep in my truck plate carrier. It's a covert. It looks like a briefcase, kind of like a canvas briefcase. You open it up. I only carry a front plate on it because I said it's more for an active shooter kind of scenario if I'm at
Right.
work or something. And I look at that as, okay, I have my front plate and it's a standalone plate. That way I figure, okay, if there's an active shooter, I'm hopefully facing the guy and he's
Right.
not
Yeah,
shooting
yeah,
back. I mean,
yeah.
if I got my back to him, something's gone totally wrong. And I'm
Something's
like, all right,
wrong. Very wrong.
it
Right.
doesn't, so there's that. It depends on what you want. I suggest that you can go and you don't have to dump a whole lot of money into armor. And remember, not everybody, especially if something happens, let's say something happened tomorrow. I don't think everybody's gonna be running around with an M4 or an AK tomorrow.
Right.
Your biggest threats would probably be people with pistols, right?
9 mil, 45.
Yeah. So most of your 3A soft armor will stop that. So somebody asked me the other day about this, and I told them, man, just get a set of 3, because it's expensive. Body armor, no matter what you say, it costs.
Oh yeah.
You can get it in phases, but if you get a set like a vest of like 3A soft armor, that's going to protect you against most of the stuff you're going to see out there traveling around. Well, and then over time you can add a plate to it or what have you. And the good thing with those, when you do that, you can scale up to get your, be like a little walking tank, and you could scale down to be less. So they come with side plates you can put on. It's what you want. It depends. Again, it's kind of all situationally dependent.
So it's like, I'm standing around on guard and we don't anticipate really anything happening. So I'm just going to have a couple plates in. Oh, now we have to go out to rescue our friend or whatever. So I'm going to put in all the plates kind of thing instead of.
And then the armor itself too, if people aren't used to wearing it, it's bulky. I mean, you can get it tight to you, which depending on how you're used to wearing it, sometimes it could affect not your breathing, but it just might be a little bit of restricted on your chest expanding. So I recommend if you do get it, don't just throw it on once, go, oh, this looks cool. Throw it on and go out in your yard and do yard work in it.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're bending, you're moving, and see what your experience is with it, and then go from there.
Yeah, we have to wear full plates. Full, it's called a hogu for when we're sparring. And, it's a full chest thing, right? And I have to anyway, because I have a busted rib that points in towards my lungs. So I probably shouldn't be doing full contact sports, but we don't tell anybody that.
Right.
So, yeah. So, and just wearing that, like to bend over and stretch and like do all the stuff, do your normal kicks and stuff like that in this huge, you feel like a backwards turtle in it. And so, getting used to that is really, like you say, essential to know how you're going to move a little bit differently when you're in that gear versus when you're not.
Well, I mean, it gets down to stuff. If you're wearing a full set of body armor too, you get down to body armor comes in small, medium, large, unless you're in some special military unit where they custom make your body armor. So if you're getting armor that is either too small or too big for you, it's also going to affect you. And I don't mean too big in the way that it's just ungodly too big. No, it's just a little bit big in certain spots, to the point that because it's stiff. So, for example, if you have a vest that's a little bit large on you, it may affect the way you draw your pistol. If you draw your sidearm, it might put a little. So you definitely want to practice with it to get used to it. Because I know, like my pistol, and a lot of people get it and they'll load their body armor up with all kinds of stuff. Well, now can you get to your pistol? I mean, I used to keep my right side, my strong side, completely free of any gear. And it was just my pistol. I didn't want anything getting in the way of me getting to my pistol, because that was going to be that's always my transition weapon when I was overseas. And so if I'm having a transition, something bad is going on. So it's thinking through things like that, seeing how it affects your movement, if you have a set of body armor on, it's on top of it runs across your shoulder. Well, everybody's used to, when they shoot their M4s and their rifles, they get that into their shoulder pocket. Well, now that if you got body armor there, it may force you to alter how you're positioning your rifle. And if you're not used to it, when you have to shoot, that new position might screw up your vision on your sights, your sight alignment. And next thing you know, now you're having problems with that. So definitely got to train with it.
That is so true. I have a helmet that I wear for airsoft, and with my mask. Yeah. And it's just different when you bring your rifle up. If you don't have that gear on, you can line it up right down the sides, piece of cake, boom, I'm on it. But when you put all that gear on, it's like, okay, now I have to hold my rifle out totally differently than I would be to try and get that. So, I put a little holographic sight on there to make it like
that's what you have to do. Yeah, right? Stuff like that, finding out what works.
SHTF, you're going to keep putting batteries in that thing? No. Sure. So you better learn to do it without too, right?
Well, it even goes into magazine changes and all that, I mean, if you're used to coming up real tight to your body and now all of a sudden you have a first aid IFAC kit there, and it could change the way you actually bring your hand up. So get used to training. And not only are you getting used to your body armor, but it's telling you, do you need to adjust the kit that is on your body armor? If you're carrying a bunch of stuff, you're carrying magazines and blowout kits and all this stuff, do you need to move those around to where you can get to it? And I'll tell everybody this thing, because I've seen it happen over and over. People, when they're adjusting their body armor, trying to fit the whole kitchen sink on their body armor, they a lot of people will put things on their back. And I see a lot of people take their first aid kits, their blowout kits, whatever, and they put them on their back. try to reach that kit when you're injured. If you can't reach your blowout kit, how are you going to do anything with it to help stop your own bleeding? And they'll say, well, it's for somebody else to treat me. Well,
what
okay.
if somebody else is around?
Yeah, you're gaming during a firefight that somebody else is going to be next to you, because I know as a tactical medic, if somebody's shot, I may not be able to get to you because me becoming a casualty isn't going to help make you better. So it's up to you to treat yourself, So I just actually did a podcast on this week. I watched Mike Rowe. I went to Mike Rowe, did a talk here at the SHOT Show, and he talked about it. And he says, it's safety. He one of his biggest shocks when he was doing dirty jobs was safety first. And he went up and told the captain of a crab boat, hey, it's getting real, safety first, right? It's getting real dicey out there. People are going to get hurt. And the crab boat captain was like, no, not safety first, safety third. My first responsibility is to make you money. If you want to be safe, you need to take responsibility for your own safety because you're on the deck. Same thing goes in post-apocalypse, goes in everyday life. Take responsibility for your own stuff. And responsibility is not putting your aid bag on the back where you can't get to it.
Yeah, where you can't reach it. That's just ridiculous. Yeah. Yep. That's like James Yeager was like, go ahead, leave your tourniquet in your car in your EDC kit, right?
Yeah.
He's like, how fast can you hobble back to your car to get it? I'm like, oh, that makes complete sense.
Yeah, and fight like you train like you fight like you train. So if it's on your back, you're not going to be able to get it. Make sure you have stuff where you can get to it. Yeah, and it doesn't get in the way of doing what your other stuff you need to do.
Yeah. All righty. Well, now we know that what we can do in our ballistics gear and how to wear our gear, because that's kind of important. And like you say, it changes a lot of factors. So it's important to experience it.
Yeah. No, again, it's like, if you're going to go out and do something, the military goes out and they'll wear their ballistic gear everywhere they go. The military is made up of mostly kids in their, not kids, men and women in their 20s. They're really in shape because they go work out and do push-ups and do all their stuff every day. And I'm pretty confident that most peppers are just like me. We don't do a whole lot of push-ups every day.
I do.
I know you do. You're all fit and all that stuff.
Come on.
But and so you got to take that into account. Be honest with yourself. Personal honesty. Are you really fit and can do this stuff? So putting yourself in a ball of body armor and saying you're going to go bug out now with your 100-pound backpack on. Let me know how that works out for you.
That is the key motivator right there. Whenever I'm like, oh man, I can't go any further, I think about like, could you go further? If your family was on the line, could you go further? Oh yeah, you could. Come on now.
Yeah, I don't know if if any of your listeners watch Joe Rogan or listen to Joe Rogan. He does he takes his episodes and breaks them up in little sound bites on YouTube, like 10-minute, 15-minute sound bites. And he talks about that because they were asking about his training. And he says, and he works out like a fiend every day. And he says, man, whenever I start getting tired, I think of somebody attacking my wife and kids and that I have to defend him. He says that pushes me over the edge every time.
That is exactly what I do too. I was hitting the bag last night and I'm like, dude, I can't do another set. Oh, yes, you can. You think about family, you think about, what you might have to face one day. And come on, I'm 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing. I could have a 320-pound guy attack me and I'm going to need every bit of strength and brains that I have to be able to survive that situation. And that's not even talking an SHTF situation, So, Yep. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, why don't we close it up? Let everybody know one more time where they can find you, and then we'll say adieu for today.
Thanks a lot, man. Hey, just find me over at survival.com. And if anybody's ever heading through Vegas and they want to get some medical training in, definitely give me a shout over there. I can always try to arrange something if we have some availability going on.
That's awesome. So awesome. Well, we will see you next season for sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Brian, so much for coming on the show and sharing the information with us. I found it really, really interesting that indeed you could survive these bullet shots at point blank range as long as your gear was up to snuff. So that's really going to be the difficult part, I think, is after an extended period of survival, trying to keep your gear in top-notch shape when you don't have access to replacements and stuff like that. Definitely something we want to think about stocking up ahead of time. Although I know that they do have a lifespan on them as well. I've also seen some interesting ideas for DIYing your own ballistics gear, which I don't know if I'd want to stand and test that. However, in a survival situation, Having something is going to be much better than having nothing. I also want to take the time to thank all of my subscribers for everything that you guys do. I got some really cool plans over there. You can pick plans that allow you to make a character for my books and things like that. Lots of fun stuff going on over there. So head on over to www.authorSaraFhathaway.com/supporters. That's www.authorSaraFhathaway.com/supporter to go ahead and get signed up and become a part of that program. Thank you so much for listening today. You guys are epically awesome. I so appreciate all your guys' feedback and interest in the show. Definitely keeps me going and gets me fueled up to do the next show and keep going each week. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you really enjoy your day. And until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sara for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, Battle for the South, and Dark Days in Denver at www.authorSaraFhathaway.com. If you love Sara's books and this podcast, please head over to Amazon or iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.